Welcome back to the Manitoba Fitness Council Aquatic Exercise online course. Moving into Chapter 4, now we'll start to talk about different movement ideas and how the movements can be changed in order to create extra intensity within the workouts. During this next chapter, we're going to be talking about impact options, make sure that we understand how they will be used for effective aquatic training, understand the basic movements that are appropriate for aquatic training, and learning how to change those movements using the sweat formula. We should be also keeping in mind the performance standard number 1 in the aquatic fitness package that you were given. The aquatic exercise leader will select safe and appropriate exercises for the goals and objectives of the aquatic exercise class. The competencies that we need to master: identifying the process of movement analysis, explain the purpose of a given exercise, analyze its potential risks, and provide modifications. Make sure that we are able to defend exercise selection and appropriate use. We need to be able to identify common exercise modifications. Need to be able to identify how to progress exercises for a given muscle group. Need to be able to explain the importance of proper body alignment, posture, and core stabilization as it relates to the water and an aquatic fitness class. Identify ways to correct errors in technique. How do we tell people that they have a better opportunity to do things a different way? How do we help them to get the most out of their workout? When starting, it's important to understand the basic leg movements that we'll be using for the most part in an aquatic exercise class. So these basic leg movements include walking, jogging, kicking, so that would be a front kick, rocking, that would be something called a pendulum, jumping, scissors, like a jumping jack, except your feet cross over in front, usually the next one they cross over in the back, skiing legs, and sidestep. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to try several different leg exercises to ensure that we are engaging muscles differently. If you think about the walk and the jog, we are engaging muscles differently because of the size of the movement, because of the speed of the movement, even though the movement looks very similar. When we move into the kicking or the jumping, again, there's an opportunity to have the joints and limbs move through a basic range of motion. We want to make sure that when we pick movements that we have opportunity for them to be slow enough to accommodate an active range of motion. So for instance, in the cross-country ski, we can have people extend their arms all the way to the front and to the back. We can have them extend their legs all the way out to the back and the front. It can be a humongous movement for range of motion. It can also be very small. If we speed it up, the size of the movement gets very small, but it allows people to move quickly and increase the intensity of that movement. We want to make sure that we allow for that active range of motion in every class, trying to get each joint to move in different directions. We want to be able to add intervals for shorter or faster legs in order to add a cardiovascular challenge to our classes. I oftentimes will do circuits in the classes, and again, what happens is, just like we talked about with the ski will get smaller and smaller, but we're really not looking at that point at the quality and range of motion of the movement. We're looking at the intensity of the exercise and allowing it to be smooth and seamless so that people can really get their heart rate up and get that cardiovascular conditioning that they really need. We need to talk to our participants and cue them on how to maintain a stable core and neutral pelvis. So for instance, in the ski movement, if you have your arms moving front and back, you are probably engaging your core. If you add to lift up the shoulders at that same time, you're definitely engaging your core. If you look down into the pool and you see people in a cross-country ski movement and their arms are floating across in front of their body on each time that their arms comes up to the front, it means that they're turning off their core. They're slouching. Their posture is not doing the best job that it can for them in order to help them move through that movement and get the most out of it. So our opportunity is to talk about how to make that ski the most efficient use of their time so that they can activate their core while they're in that movement. Once we get them to a point where they're feeling comfortable with the leg movement, we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to add arms that complement, assist, resist, or stabilize. So again, in the ski, you can take the ski arms, and so again, it's a front and back arm. You can take both hands, then push and pull out to the front at the same time. It's a very different movement. It changes that movement so that it's not the static ski that we stay in all the time. There are a lot of movements in your book, and it's going to take some time for you to get used to them. Be great if you took some time right now to pause the video and think about each one of these activities as you do them, what they could look like in the water. In your book, between pages 48 and 66, there is a movement dictionary of a number of different moves that can be used to change up your routine. Turning all the way to page 60, we can look at some balance positions that can be used when you are planning your class in a shallow water class. Page 60 talks about the options. So on the left, you have the athletic stance. Notice that the feet are both planted on the bottom of the pool. The knees are slightly bent. It is excellent for core training. So now if you were to add some arm exercises that encourage stability, you're going to see that the work in staying steady is going to be the core work that people are going to get. This is a great position to be in if you're looking at doing some arm or upper body strengthening exercises. And it is just a great all-around starting position for anything where you're using weights or aquabells in the pool. On the right, we have the lunge position. We have one foot forward and one leg back. Both knees are bent. Back leg has the heel off the bottom of the pool. It can be more stable when the legs are hip distance apart, but can challenge balance if the feet are in line with each other. So the more towards the midline the feet move, the more unstable this position becomes, and the more challenge is available for people to practice their balance. This position can also be used as a hip flexor or a calf stretch. Getting back to pool temperature, our pool temperature will determine whether we do a dynamic or a static stretching at the end of the class. Doing a static stretch at the end of the class when the pool is very cold will be very, very challenging. So again, it's just something to kind of keep in mind. You want to make sure that anything that you do on one side of the body, that you continue to the other side and do that exercise on the other side. Arm movements are just as important as leg movements. And again, lots of times can be added once the leg movements have been mastered. Sometimes when people are new to aquatic fitness or they're deconditioned, they say, oh my goodness, I am just not coordinated enough to do this activity. So it's nice to be able to start with the legs, and once the legs are kind of moving the way that you're instructing, you can add in some arms. So slicing hands is the first movement. In a slicing hands, you have a flat hand that is sliding through the water, not creating a lot of resistance. In a fisting hand, just like it sounds like, you're going to create a fist. Dragging that through the water is going to create more resistance. Cupping hands, so opening up, creating a cup as if you were going to drink water out of your hand, and pulling that through the water is going to be another opportunity to create resistance. Finally, there's something called webbed hands, open in gloves. So basically what it is there's neoprene gloves that can be bought from specialty stores. I have several pairs of them that I lend to people on occasion, just so they can see what they're all about, so that they can decide if they want to buy them for themselves. They're a neoprene glove, and basically they create extra resistance in every movement that they do. So because you're dragging this glove through the water, it creates extra resistance. And we're going to show those in one of the other videos, so keep watching. On page 45 in your book, it does talk a little bit more about the basic arm movements, and it is best to work the upper body, mostly with the arms in the water. You may need to encourage participants to move into deeper water to ensure their arms are in the water. Lots of times when I talk about this with my participants, I'll say, see if you can get your shoulders just underneath the water. It allows them to do the whole movement by having their arms completely submerged. Arm exercises performed overhead above the water can aggravate shoulder injuries if someone has them. It can also potentially increase neck tension, maybe even elevating heart rate. Not good for those with blood pressure issues. Instead of taking the hands up and out of the water, you have an option of changing the angle of the body. So you can do something like a side stroke, where the arms are doing the same work that they would overhead, but you're lying on the side instead. As we go through some of the movements, we are going to use the sweat formula to look at different options for how we can change that movement to increase the intensity. Changing the types of hands, the slice, fist, cupped, or webbed hands that we talked about, can increase the surface area and increase the intensity of any given exercise. This adds an opportunity to create more resistance by using different forms of resistance, mainly things like drag. So drag is the amount of resistance that's created as you drag your hands through the water. It also can create frontal resistance, just like in exercise theory when we look at analyzing exercises. One of my favorite ways to change up an exercise when I am teaching in an aquatic fitness class is to change the working position of the activity. So for instance, we have neutral, which is not in your book, but basically what it is when, imagine you are in a cross-country ski, you bring your shoulders down to the top of the water, arms and legs are moving side by side, but you are not bouncing as if in a ski. So you're holding yourself down essentially, but you're not anchored down to the bottom of the pool. The next one is anchored. So anchored would be that stance that we talked about earlier, where our feet are both touching the bottom of the pool, and we are not rebounding, we are staying in one spot, not moving. In a rebounded working position, you have people rebounding off the bottom of the pool. So this one, if you have people doing a ski in a shallow water class, almost looks like everyone is popcorn. As they push off the bottom of the pool, they come way up out of the water, and it allows them again to create a different working position for the ski. Suspended is another way to do a working position. Lots of times this one is used more in a deep water class, but it can be used in a shallow water class as well, where the feet are not touching the bottom of the pool. So again, in the ski position, you would have people where their feet are not touching the bottom of the pool. They are moving their arms and legs in the ski, but it is a stationary movement, but it is also suspended. Another category that we could add to this list would be the light bounce. So light bounce is on page 41 in your textbook, and it talks about the natural buoyant lift that easily occurs when performing movements like jogging, skiing, or jumping jacks with the floor. It is appropriate for most clients, but too much could be an issue for those with any kind of joint issues. When we have people in a rebounded position, we have to be careful that when they are pushing their feet off the bottom of the pool, they're not creating extra torque on the knees or any kind of extra impact on the feet. So again, it's up to you to talk to your participants to see how they're doing, and if they are finding that rebounding is giving them any kind of pain, then you want to have them stop the rebound and take their feet and just essentially slide them along the bottom of the pool. Find that level of impact that works for them. When we have people in a suspended state, we want to make sure that we avoid prolonged seated or hip flex positions. It can cause low back pain. So imagine if you are doing a cycling type movement. So you have your feet out in front and your feet are cycling kind of along. Lots of times we'll have people sit in a seated bike position. So the legs are out in front. Imagine you're sitting almost on an exercise bike. But you can take the legs down and have a cycling position where the legs are right underneath the body. So again, it's just about looking at your participants, being creative with some of the ways that you can have them move in the water and going from there. Let's work through some of the working position options together. If you'll notice, anchored is not on this list because most of these activities are dynamic range of motion activities in which we are looking to get the heart rate up, and that's very difficult if you have the feet anchored. Also think about doing an anchored walk. We also call it a stand. So in the walk, to do a neutral position, you would have the participants walking normally, not a lot of bounce. If you had them rebounding, they would be pushing their feet hard into the bottom of the pool. It would almost probably look like a jump as opposed to a walk, almost like a skip. When we have them in a suspended walk, we would have them with a flotation belt, probably in the deep end. It would still look like the same movement, but it would allow them to get no impact on those joints. What about the jog? Would this be different? The neutral position would have them with their shoulders hopefully down close to the top of the water, have them not bouncing, and having them move through an active range of motion. In the rebounded jog, again, it will still look something like a skip, but they will be moving faster, faster, faster. In a suspended jog, again, it's going to be just like the walk. You are going to have people with a buoyancy belt that's helping them stay up in the water while creating no impact for their joints. Back kicks. So imagine standing on one foot while one foot kicks back. That's essentially what back kicks are. So neutral, most of the time this one is done in a neutral position. Rebounding is going to be very difficult in this position. Just because of the sheer movement pattern, it's not something that is a normal movement pattern for us, and having them be in a rebound position is not going to be a workable option. You can have them move into a suspended movement, so if you had them kicking back, you may have to have them kind of changing the angle of their body in order to be able to accommodate this in a suspended move. Rocking horse. We haven't talked about the rocking horse a whole lot yet, but in a rocking horse, you imagine you have one knee coming up toward the chest. When that foot goes down, the other leg kicks back. So you do this rocking back and forth for several seconds, or up to say 20 seconds before you change over and try the other side. So again, one knee comes up towards the chest, one leg is kicking back. So in a neutral position, the movement would be so small, it might be very difficult to manage. In a rebounded position, you can have them moving in a rebounded position, but again, it's like a gallop, but it's only using the same leg first kind of every time, and you want to have them bringing that knee up to the chest. So you may have not a good opportunity for them to be able to be really efficient in this movement if we are doing into a rebound. Suspended also can be done. More of a challenge when it's suspended, more because it takes people time to learn the movement so that they can do it and feel that they're being efficient at it instead of just flailing about in the deep end of the water. Jumping jacks. In a neutral position, I love it. The core is engaged. You can have the arms and legs moving in and out. You can have the feet touching the bottom of the pool, sliding side to side, just like a regular jumping jack, but with no impact. On the rebound, you can have people getting way up out of the water. There's lots of opportunities when they bring those legs together to be able to shoot themselves up out of the water. Suspended, this is a great move for a suspended class. Arms and legs moving, again, it's going to look almost like a rebound if they're doing it right in the deep end, because it is going to move them up and down in the water. You just have to be careful with this one in the deep end, because if you have someone who has a buoyancy issue, so some people are more buoyant and some people are less buoyant. Those people who are less buoyant, if they do a jumping jack in the deep end, may end up going under the water slightly, even with a buoyancy belt on. They may need to wear two, something to be kind of concerned about. A scissor or a cross-country ski, I see those as being slightly different, but in a scissor movement, again, it's like the jack, except the foot is coming across in front. Let's move into the cross-country ski. Cross-country ski in a neutral position, I love it. Again, the core is engaged, arms and legs are moving front and back. It's a very dynamic, smooth movement, and it really can max people out as far as some muscle conditioning at the same time. Rebounded, great move for rebound. You can also cue people to have them touch softly on the bottom of the pool, and use the leg power that they have in moving front to back to help propel them up out of the water. Suspended, cross-country ski, love it again. Again, this is why I talked about the fact that the cross-country ski is going to be one of your most favorite exercises. In a suspended move, no impact. It is a very natural movement pattern, having opposite arm and opposite leg moving front and back. When we enlarge the movement, we start off with a small range of motion and then encourage our participants to work through their full active range of motion. This is great because they have the opportunity to really work in the level that suits them. So if someone has had a shoulder issue in the past and they have a healthy shoulder, but at this point it just doesn't go the same way as everyone else's does, they have the opportunity to move to their own full range of motion. We want to make sure that we challenge the cardiovascular response by encouraging clients to keep the same speed even as they enlarge the movement. So that's one way to work at intensity. Get the movement nice and small, then have them speed up. Then you can have them enlarge the movement, trying to keep that same speed. It's a great way to cue them to keep the size and the speed of the movement going. When we extend into a fuller range of motion, we increase forms of drag, surface area, and intensity, and encourage movement around the joint for greater flexibility. We want to make sure that we demonstrate a slower speed so that the movement technique can be done slowly. It's up to us to demonstrate what the movement looks like in a safe and effective way on the side of the pool. There's nothing more disheartening, though, for a participant to have their instructor up on the side of the pool, skiing as fast as they possibly can, trying to show them what speed they're looking for, but at the same time having someone in the pool that has no clue what that means for their body in the class, in the water. So we have to slow down the movement so that we are working at the same pace. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't speed that up as your participants speed up, but especially when you're demonstrating, you want to make sure that you are slowing the movement right down, because remember, they're in water and the viscosity of the water is going to slow them down. It's also easy to be able to create some different options. So doing the ski, you can do, several different intervals with a ski, but maybe alternating between an enlarged ski and a faster slow ski will help people stay motivated and help them create that opportunity for changes in intensity that you're looking for to create that cardiovascular response in them. One of the other ways that I love to use to change up and make my routine a little bit more creative, plus challenging different parts of the body, is to change the movement so that we are moving in different planes of motion. So for instance, completing the ski only in the front then only behind the center of mass is one option. And what that looks like is, if you have people get into a regular ski, then you have them tilt forward from the hips so that the legs are kind of skiing out behind. The arms are still moving opposite arm, opposite leg. Then you can have them come back to a neutral ski so their shoulders are up, their legs are underneath them in a ski. Then you can have them move to a front ski, in which case you were leaning slightly back. The skiing legs are happening almost in front of the body. It's a great opportunity to perform around the entire body, single joint exercises that encourage the participants to work through the resistance of the water. It also encourages new neurological firings, and the muscles try to perform this exercise with different degrees of buoyancy and gravitational forces. Other thing you can do, you can float on the side and make the scissors occur or the ski occur at the surface of the pool. It's one thing that I love. So you take an aquabell in one hand, for instance, and have people kind of lay on their side and make those scissors or the ski movement occur at the surface of the pool. Then you would have them do something like try and keep going in a straight line so that they, again, are engaging their core and getting the most that they can out of each and every exercise that you offer. You have a real opportunity in each class to be able to play with movement. So again, even if you take something small like walking or jogging, and you have them, instead of just jogging on the spot, you have them jog forwards, you have them jog backwards, you can have them jog sideways, you can have them move diagonally. One of the things that I have done that is a lot of fun is having people, now it depends on who's in your class and what the size of your class is, but have them kind of follow in each other's footsteps. You have them kind of all moving in a circle, and then you have them turn around and go the other way and fight through the drag and eddy currents. Creates a lot of resistance, creates a lot of fun, gives people the opportunity to kind of move around in the class so that they're not stuck in one spot for the entire duration of the class. It also creates some opportunities to create some high levels of intensity by having them move forward or backwards or side to side. Staying in one spot sometimes is really easy. Now, one of the things that might be really challenging with traveling your class is the size of the class and the size of the space. Make it take some time to get everyone kind of lined up so that you can move them over. So just make sure that you build that into your program, time that's needed to set up for any kind of travel activities.